Okay, swing basics. So we will see what swing is, and we'll talk about the concept of container that are in fact top level containers. I will talk about the concept of content pane, and we are going to see some programming style using JFrame, JPanel, and content pane together. And we'll talk about layout managers, and then we will see some GUI components and setting look and feel. What is Swing? Swing is Java library. You can call it framework as well, but it is a basically Java library for creating graphical user interface. So it's part of the larger JFC, Java Foundation classes, but it replaces old library called AWT. So nobody's using AWT right now, but in the beginning of Java, there was AWT, and then Swing actually replaced it. Now moving forward, Java now has a Java FX. So Java FX is replacing Swing. Okay, so the role of Swing is going to get diminished as time goes on, while Java FX is the technology that is going to be used for building GUI application on Java platform. So just to let you know. Okay, so Swing applications will use look and feel of the system they are running on, or they can be set by the program. So, if you're running Swing application on Windows platform, it will have Windows look and feel. If it is running on Mac, it will have Mac's look and feel. So this is nice. So what makes up Swing? So of course, there are Swing components. These are UI components, buttons, text fields, frames, and things like that. These are all Java classes that capture these UI components. Then there are containers. So containers are the containers of UI components. So typically you have a container like a JPanel onto which you are going to add a few buttons and text field and things like that. Okay. Then there are layout managers. So layout managers are used to specify how you want to arrange these UI components in a container. Okay, so you might want to see them in the grid layout manager, right? So so layout basically give you a choice in terms of how you want to have these components to be the layout on the screen, and then we have event handling. So if a user actually clicked a button, or if a user enters some text and things like that, then there has to be some event handler that captures that event and do something about it. Okay, so every UI component can have event handler associated with it. Okay, so let's move on with the containers. So there are two types of containers: top-level containers. So these are top-level containers are the places for other Swing components to paint themselves. So Java provides three top-level containers: JFrame, JDialog, and JApplet. Okay, so for desktop applications, we are typically dealing with JFrame. Okay. And then there are intermediate containers, and you can call it lightweight containers. And these containers provide simplicity for positioning of atomic components. You can actually apply layout manager typically to these intermediate containers. So JPanel is probably the most popular intermediate containers, and JSplit pane and JTabbed pane. So split pane is you have a two split pane, and JTab pane is having a tab. Okay, containers and components. So all GUI objects are components. Okay, so some are also containers. So in other words, containers themselves are components. Okay, so JFrame itself is a component. JPanel itself is a component. Okay. So in fact, they are all subclass of J component. So there is actually a class, high-level class called the J component, and everything is a child class of J component. Okay. So so containers themselves could actually function as a component. Okay. And you place other components into these containers. So JFrame could contain JButtons, JTextFields, and things like that. And now JPanel represents parts of the window which contains other GUI components. Okay, so you can add things directly to JFrame, or you can actually add things to JPanel, and then you can add JPanel to JFrame. Okay, so what do we do with containers? Again, you add components to them, and then you can use layout control, layout manager, to determine how these UI components will be arranged on the screen. Okay, so later on we are going to see several built-in layout managers you can use. Okay, so let's see how we can use top-level container. It's mostly JFrame. So as I said before, Java provides Swing provides three top-level container classes: JFrame, JDialog, and JApplet. So JDialog is for dialog, and Applet is actually an applet coming from the web to the browser. Okay, so we're gonna mostly focus on JFrame, which is used for building desktop Swing application. Okay, so containment, hierarchy, and container. So to appear on screen, every GUI component must be part of the containment hierarchy. Okay, so you can think of containment hierarchy as basically a tree of components that has the top level container as its root. Okay, and each component can be contained only once. So if a component is already in a container, and then if you try to add it to another container, then component will be removed from the first container and then added to the second. Okay, so each top level container has content pane. So this is another concept. There is a concept of content pane. So top level container has content pane, and generally speaking, this is the one that contains the visible components in the top level containers GUI. Okay, so top level container does have visible part and invisible part, and this content pane typically represents the visible part of that top level container. Okay, now to the top level container you can optionally add a menu bar. Okay, so this menu bar will be positioned within the top level container but outside of the content pane. So if you take a look at the picture here, suppose I have JFrame that contains, something that I captured on the left is the very simple top level container containing the menu bar. So we don't have any menu, but there is a menu bar, and then content pane. So if you dissect it to the right, then what makes up this whole thing is there is a frame, which is a JFrame, I should say JFrame, that is the top level container, and that top level container, JFrame, is made of two things, menu bar and then content pane. Okay, so inside the content pane, basically what we have done is we add a single J label that consumes all the space of that content pane. Okay, so that's what you actually see on the left. Okay, all right. So top level container. So each program that uses the Swing components has at least one top level container. So this again is the root of containment hierarchy, and this hierarchy that contains all of the Swing components that appear inside the top level container. Okay, so a standalone application with a Swing based GUI has at least one containment hierarchy. In this case, JFrame is going to be top level container. Now, if this application has, let's say, dialogues, okay, then it might have JDialog as another top level container. Okay, so that's basically this is all about. If an application has one main window and two dialogues, then the application has three containment hierarchies, and thus three top-level containers. One containment hierarchy has JFrame as root, and each of the other two has JDialog object as its root. Okay, so let's talk about the content pane a bit. So you are going to add components to content pane. So you find the content pane of top level container by calling get content pane method of the JFrame object. So you're going to call get content pane method of the JFrame object, and then you can add. In this case, you are going to add yellow label using border layout manager, okay, with the center. And the default content pane is simple intermediate container that inherits from GUI component, and it uses the border layout as a default layout manager. Okay. Now, when you actually call the get content pane, it actually returns JPanel object. So one of the primary example of the content pane is JPanel. Okay. Okay, so how you can customize content pane. So it's easy to customize the content pane. So you can set the layout manager, okay, other than the default layout. I mean, if you don't specify layout manager, then default layout manager, which is the border layout manager, is selected, okay. And however, there is one thing, yeah, so this is probably not that much important, so I'm gonna just move ahead. Adding a menu bar to the top level container, you can say frame and set menu bar, and then you can provide the menu bar object. Okay, so let's talk about the JPanel. So one of the example of content that could be actually inserted into content pane is JPanel. Okay. So JPanel is intermediary container. So JPanel class provides general purpose container for containing lightweight components. So by default, panels do not add colors to anything except their own background. However, you can easily add borders to them and otherwise customize their painting. So in many types of look and feel, panels are opaque by default. So opaque panels work well as content panes and can help with painting efficiently. So the reason that JPanel is actually used as the the default content pane is because of this transparency, and then it's everything that you are going to add is going to be actually directly visible because JPanel itself is transparent. Okay, it doesn't have any background. Okay. So this is the reason why JPanel is used as a primary content pane of JFrame top level container. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the programming style or programming API. So you could actually write 3 different programming style like this. And this is actually what I found. I actually looked various swing applications, and I found they actually use they actually do different ways of doing coding. So I actually kind of summarize. I capture the 3 different styles, and this is actually what you will find in most of the swing applications out there. First, you create a JPanel and add it to the content pane panel, the content pane. Okay, I should say content pane. So see, you create a JPanel, then you set the content pane like that. My frame set content pane with the JPanel. And then the second option is you can create the JPanel object, and then you are going to add it to the content pane. Okay, so basically you get the content pane, and then you can add it. Okay, and then so the second scheme is the most common, and the last scheme is that you can actually get content pane, and then it actually returns the J component type, but you can actually cast it into JPanel. Okay, so this is also possible. So which one to use is actually programmer's taste. Okay. So again, the second option is probably the most popular or most common scheme of writing code. Okay, so moving forward, layout manager. So what does layout manager do? It determines the position and size of multiple components within a container. So it governs the layout of these components in the container. So as you will see a different layout manager, you will see what I'm talking about. If no layout manager is used, you will need to position the elements manually. So without using layout manager, it's your responsibility to manage the alignment and everything. And that's a lot more difficult. Okay, so you might want to you definitely want to use layout manager. So built-in layout manager classes. So flow layout manager, and border layout, and grid layout, grid back layout, and card layout. And the way that you can set the layout manager is basically calling set layout, and you provide the layout manager object. Okay, so let's take a look at each of these layout manager. Flow layout manager positions the components in the left to right and top to bottom. So it's actually starting from the upper left corner, and then 1 1 1 1, and then it goes to the next and things like that. Okay, so this is the flow layout manager. So here, very simple application. So here I have a flow layout demo project. I mean the object here, and then I'm going to so you can see this is a JFrame class. It's the extension of JFrame. So I can just create that object inside my main method, and then I'm going to set the I'm going to call the set layout method of JFrame class, and then I provide the flow layout object, which is actually right and the 10 by 10. So basically, if you happen to have 3 buttons, okay, and it will start from here and here, and then it goes like this, okay, and then it goes like this and this and this, something like that, okay. Okay, so that is the flow layout manager, and so the next one is the border layout manager. This is the default. Okay, so you can specify north, south, and east and west and center. So if you specify north, it will stretch horizontally. South is stretch horizontally, and the east and west is adjust vertically. So let's actually take a look at this. If you say center, then it will adjust in both directions. Okay, so let's see. Let's actually see this example. So this is border. So we have actually added 5 buttons to this JFrame, and then the we are basically using the center is center, and north button is north, and things like that. So let's take a look at that. So this is what you're going to see in this particular size. Okay. However, if you just resize, okay, then the center will be actually extending like this. Okay. So that is border layout. And grid layout is like a flow layout, but positions the components from left to right and top to bottom. Starts the adding components at the left corner. So that's the same as flow layout, but it divides the container into a number of rows and columns, and regions are equally sized and ignores the component's preferred size. So suppose if you have this example, but this time you are using grid layout, and what you're going to see is something like this. Okay, so everything is going to be in fact same size. Okay, and after resizing, the size ratio is going to be the same. Okay, so this is grid layout manager. Okay, so I mean you can actually see a few other layout managers. Okay, so now let's talk about the swing GUI components. So the swing GUI components, like buttons, they are actually J buttons and J text field and things like that. They are all under the package of Java X.Swing, and they are entirely written in Java. And you can actually also have some interesting components such as the color chooser and option pane. These are all provided for you. Okay. So yeah, AWT versus swing is not probably that much important anymore because nobody's using AWT. So AWT used to have a button class, and the swing now have a corresponding version of it called the J button. So everything start with a J that is from swing. Okay, so these are example components. J component is actually root class for all swing components, and J button, J checkbox, file chooser, text field, frame, J panel, and all that stuff. Okay, applet, J option pane. Yeah, that's something that we have used, right? J option pane. Okay. Setting look and feel. So by specifying fully qualified name of the class for the look and feel. So if you want to look and feel, meta look and feel, this is what you're going to see. Okay. If you actually specify this is actually Windows version of it. Okay, so if I say UI manager get system look and feel class name, basically it will get the particular platform. Because I'm running Windows, it's actually getting the Windows version of it. If you're running with a Mac version of it, then it will actually set the Mac look and feel. Okay. All right, so that is the end of the presentation. So I got 6 minutes. So let me actually explain the hands-on lab documentation. Then I expect you guys to be able to do this hands-on lab yourself. So exercise 1 is basically various JFrame, the application. So let me just show the code. This is the very simple bare bone JFrame application. here, the code is very simple. So I have main class that extends JFrame, and I create the main object, and then I just set the size and set the set visible to true. Okay. And next one is I'm actually adding J label to JFrame. Okay, so this is what you are going to see. So here we created JFrame object. Okay, and I name as the hello world string, and we set the size of it, and then we also actually set default close operation. So if I click this close, this X box, then it will close the application. So I set the option of JFrame exit on close. Okay, and add ubiquitous hello world. Yeah, so now we're actually adding JLabel to the frame, and then we actually pack it and we display. Okay, that is that. And this one, adding JPanel to JFrame and JPanel. Okay, yeah, so we are basically adding these things, in this case, the text and this bar to the JPanel, and then we are adding JPanel to JFrame. Okay, so here, yeah, the print, the paint method is basically repaint things. So every time you actually resize, this every time you resize, this paint method is going to be called to repaint it. Okay. All right. So what's important here is that we create a JFrame object, and then we get the oh, okay. So here we actually, yeah. So we have this main class is extension of JPanel object. Okay. So when we create main object, it creates a JPanel object, and we are adding JPanel object to the JFrame. Okay, so this is a case that we are, we are adding JPanel to JFrame. Okay, so this is the same thing, but this time we are adding a few buttons here. Okay, and you also have event listener. So every time you click something, it will actually increase the number of button clicks. So let's take a look at this code. Okay, so it's get JPanel as J component. So we have two J. Yeah. So basically we have a main. Okay, so main, and it implements the action listener. Okay, so now this main class should have the method action performed method implementation. So this one. So this is event handler. Okay, so it's basically the increasing the number of clicks. Okay, now the this code here we have get JPanel as J component that is actually being called in the main method, I assume. So in the main method, yeah, we're actually calling create schedule a job for event dispatching thread, and oh, okay, yeah. So this is actually running runnable code, right? Yeah, so you're actually running in a separate thread. Okay, so it calls the create and show UI, and that is this. And inside of it is calling the get JPanel as J component. That is this method. Okay, this method. So it basically created two J button components. Okay, and then we create the JPanel. And when we create a JPanel, we specify the layout manager. So we are using grid layout here. And then we are adding a button. These two buttons are being added to JPanel, and then we also added the label, and then we also set the border. And so this is basically returning JPanel object as J component. Okay, so here basically what we have done is that we get the JPanel object as a type of J component, and then we are adding that J component, which is a JPanel object, to we are adding it to a frame. Okay, frame object. All right, so and this one is add JPanel to JFrame. So here basically we have a JFrame object, and then we have a JPanel object, and then we are going to add widgets. So we are going to call add widgets as JPanel. So this is the one. Okay. All right, so I'm going to actually ask you guys to look at the code yourself. So exercise 2 is JFrame and content pane. So here I'm actually the JPanel to content pane, and yeah, okay, yeah. So this is the example that I actually captured in the slide. Okay, so I'm going to actually ask you guys to take a look at that as well. And exercise 3 is a layout manager. So you can actually try different layout manager. Okay, so that is the border layout, which is a default. And this is the border layout on content pane. Okay, and this one is, I'm going to just to show the picture. Yeah, flow layout. And this one is flow layout on JPanel. Okay, so you can use a layout manager on JPanel or JFrame. Okay, and this one is grid layout. Okay, and this one is a grid layout on JPanel. Okay, and let's see. And the last one is learning by example. So you can actually run this application, and you can just take a look at the source code. Okay. All right, so I apologize that I have to rush a little bit because we are getting too close to 5. So let me just finish the recording.